Welcome back to another class on Gemara Journey with Rashi. We are continuing in Masecht Berachot Daf amud Aleph. This will be part 1. We are continuing from where we left off in the previous class. I'll start from the beginning of the words from Binyahu ben Yehoyada on Daf amud Aleph. Once we finish the question that we asked over here, I'll go back and I will read everything together as one, so it will be more clearer. Binyahu ben Yehoyada ze Sanhedrin. Binyahu, the son of Yehoyada, this was the Sanhedrin. If we look into Rashi, Rashi says that Binyahu ben Yehoyada ze Sanhedrin, that this is the Sanhedrin. Shahaya av bedin, because Binyahu ben Yehoyada, he was the head of the court of the Sanhedrin. So we said in the previous class, when the Chachamim went and they took permission from Sanhedrin, it brings us the proof from the verse of Binyahu ben Yehoyada. Then we continue and it says, Ve'evyatar. We saw in the pasuk it also said, Ve'evyatar. Elu urim v'tumim. These were the urim v'tumim when the Chacham Yisrael went and they asked. If we look into Rashi, it just skips one line, Rabotai, just go one line down, where it says, Ve'evyatar elu urim v'tumim. The reason, if you pay attention, Rashi put Ve'evyatar after the word V'chen Omer, because V'chen Omer is really one thing with Binyahu ben Yehoyada. But in any event, we'll do the Rashi and then we'll continue. So he says, Ve'evyatar elu urim v'tumim. Who was Evyatar? So Rashi says, Shekol yimei David haya nishal be'evyatar. All the days of David HaMelech, he would go and he would ask Evyatar, because Evyatar was the Kohen Gadol. So David HaMelech would ask him if he would be successful. Ad milchemet Avshalom, until the war with Avshalom, Shesha'al Evyatar velo alta lo. He went and asked Evyatar if he's going to be successful against his son, and he didn't answer him, because the Urim Tumim didn't say anything, so he was unable to answer. Vesha'al Tzadok. Then he went and asked Tzadok, ve'alta lo. To Tzadok, the Urim Tumim gave an answer. Kidamrim b'seder olam, like it's brought down in Seder, like it's stated in Seder olam. V'nisalek as min hakehuna, and then from then, Evyatar was removed from the position of Kohen Gadol. So we see over here that when it says Evyatar, this was the Urim Tumim, because since he was a Kohen Gadol, when David HaMelech would ask advice from the Urim Tumim, he had to ask it from Evyatar. Evyatar would go and ask the Urim Tumim, because remember, he was wearing the breastplate on him, and the Urim Tumim would go ahead and light up with the words telling exactly how the case is going to be. It happened that when it came to the war with Avshalom, King David asked Evyatar what's going to be, is he going to be successful or not? He didn't answer him. He went and asked Tzadok, am I going to be successful or not against Avshalom? The Altalo, he answered him. So that's why from then on, Tzadok became the Kohen Gadol, and Evyatar was removed from the position of Kehuna. Something to note, now that we see it in Daf amud Aleph, before we saw in the pasuk when it said V'acharei Achitofel Binyahu ben Yehoyada ve'Evyatar, V'acharei Achitofel, and after Achitofel had died, David HaMelech took Binyahu ben Yehoyada and Evyatar as his two advisors. But they were no regular people. They were Binyahu ben Yehoyada, who was the Av Bedin of the Sanhedrin. Ve'Evyatar, he was the Kohen Gadol. So, besides being a Kohen Gadol and the Av Bedin, they were also helping, they became advisors to David HaMelech. Something to note. Go back into the Gemara. So we see from over here, Evyatar el urim v'tumim. So now the whole sequence makes sense. Because what do we say? When the Chacham Yisrael, when they entered into Achitofel, we brought a verse for Achitofel, that he was an advisor. Then it says they went to the Sanhedrin. Good. How do we know they went to the Sanhedrin? Because the next word in the verse says, Binyahu ben Yehoyada, and he was the Av ben of Sanhedrin. So we see the Chachamim went in that sequence. And then it says, Evyatar. Evyatar corresponds to Urim v'tumim, because since he was the Kohen Gadol, he was the one that was answering the questions. So we see the Chachamim, they went and they asked Achitofel. They took permission from the Sanhedrin. And then they went and asked Urim Tumim if they're going to be successful. Came Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said, what verse proves to us that this is exactly what the Chachamim did? Says, no problem, bring you the verse. Clearly we see over there, Achitofel aligns with getting advice from him. Binyahu ben Yehuda aligns with the Chachamim coming to the Sanhedrin because he was the Av Bedin. Ve'Eviatar is the Urim Tumim because they had to speak to him in order to get the answer. So we see this was the sequence of events. Continues the Gemara says, V'chein hu omer, and so to the Pasuk says, U'Binyahu ben Yehuda al ha-Kreti v'al ha-Pleti. And Binyahu, the son of Yehuda, he was in charge of the Kreti and on the Pleti. If we look into Torah or Shalom, he says, go look in Shmuel Sefer Bet, Perik Chav, Pasuk Chav Gimel. So let's do it. Let's go back to the Sefer HaMikraot. Shmuel Bet, Perik Chav, Pasuk Chav Gimel. Here. V'Yoav el kol hatzava Yisrael. And Yoav, he was the commander of the whole army of the Jewish people. Ubenaya ben Yehuda ala Kreti v'ala Pleti. He was in charge on the Kreti and on the Pleti. So let's see who was Binyahu ben Yehuda. So he says over here, Binyahu ben Yehuda misarev v'gevurei David. Binyahu, the son of Yehuda, he was from the commanders and the strong men of David. Hayam mimune ala Kreti. He was appointed on the Kreti. What does it mean, Kreti? Hayorim b'keshet. They would shoot with a bow and arrow. V'al Pleti, and on the Pleti. What does it mean, Pleti? Hakuliim zorkim be'avonim. Slingshot. V'razal amru b'dar chacham of last member. They said, Kreti u'Pleti urim v'tumim. Kreti and Pleti were the urim v'tumim. So now, if we're going to go and we're going to want to learn that the word Kreti Pleti means Urim Tumim, look what the Pasuk is telling us over here. V'chein hu omer, and so to the Pasuk says, U'Binyahu ben Yehuda ala Kreti v'ala Pleti. Binyahu, the son of Yehuda, he was on the Kreti and the Pleti, meaning he was on the Urim Tumim. What does that mean? We look into Rashi. Now, Rabotai, the Rashi, which is before the Eviatar, right? Over there we have to look now. V'chein hu omer U'Binyahu ben Yehuda ala Kreti ala Pleti. Even though the word al presents an, Rashi wants to translate it a little bit differently. Rashi, what does the Rashi say? What it means ala Kreti ala Pleti? It means like this. Rishon v'kodem lehem. Al means he was first and he was before them. Meaning, shebitchila, that in the beginning, notlim rishud v'achar kach sholim im yatzlichu. In the beginning, they would get permission from Sanhedrin in order for them to daven for them. And afterwards, they would ask if they're going to be successful from the Urim Tumim. So we have another pasuk. Besides this pasuk that proves to us that was the sequence, advice, permission, and then ask if they're going to be successful. We also have another pasuk where it clearly says that they went and they asked Sanhedrin, and then they went and they asked the Urim Tumim. How? Because it says, Binyahu ben Yehuda ala Kreti ala Pleti. What do you mean ala Kreti ala Pleti? So Rashi tells you, Rishon v'kodem lehem. He was prior to them, meaning shebitchila notlim rishut. In the beginning, they would take permission from the Sanhedrin. V'achar kach sholim im yatzuchin. Only afterwards they would go ahead and they would ask the Urim Tumim if they're going to be successful. So we see from over here that the order of sequence was like that: ask for advice, ask for permission, and ask if they're going to be successful. Continues the Gemara says, V'lama nikra shemam Kreti upleti. So one second, why did we call the Urim Tumim? Why were the names of Kreti upleti called Urim Tumim? Why was it called like that? So he says like this: Kreti shekurtim divrehem. Kreti comes from the word karet, to cut. Shekurtim divrehem, they would literally cut their words. What does that mean, to cut their words? Rashi says, shekurtim divrehem, that they would cut their words. Sheomrim divrim kitzuvim ugemurim. They would say words that was set and complete. Shelo yivchatu velo yusifu. Now you have to understand that when the Urim V'Tumim did, when you would ask, for example, they would ask the Kohen Gadol, Evyatar, or Tzadok when it was his time to come. Doesn't matter. When they would ask a Kohen Gadol if they're going to be successful at war or whatever the situation might be, the Urim V'Tumim, the letters would light up, answering them. So he says over here, when the letters would light up, when the Urim V'Tumim, when they said something, it was set and complete, meaning it was 100% precision. They were precise when they said something. You didn't have to think that, oh, maybe they're okay. 1 second, maybe I'm not reading it. Maybe I'm missing a word. Maybe I'm adding a word. No. Shekortim divrem. No. You know when you cut something, if you cut a bread, you can't put it back the same way. No matter what you do, you're not going to put it. It's never going to be the same. You cut a clothing. A person gets cut. No matter what you do, you can't make it look like original. Over here also, when the Urim V'Tumim, when they said something, it was definite. That's it. You don't have to sit there, add or no, nothing. It was 100% definite. Now, so one more time, Rabotai. V'lama nikra shemam kretu upleti. And why were their names of the Urim V'Tumim called kretu upleti? Kreti shekotim divrehem, because they would cut their words. Shomrim divarim kitzuvim ugimurim. They would say the words set and complete. Shelo yivchatu ve'lo yusifu. So people shouldn't go ahead and think maybe we should take away a word, maybe we should add a word. No. The reason why it was precise, shelo yivchatu, so people shouldn't go ahead and subtract, or ve'lo yusifu, and shouldn't add. All right, Rabotai, let me just do that Rashi one more time. I want to make sure it comes out good in English. Shekortim et divrehem, they would cut their words, meaning shomrim divrim kitzuvim ugimurim. They would say their words set and complete. Shelo yivchatu, so it shouldn't have, their words should not have been minimized or diminished. V'lo yusif, and they shouldn't add on it. It should be the way they said it. That's exactly how it's going to be. What does pleti mean? Even though Rashi doesn't have the word pleti, the Gemara says shemuflaim b'divrehem. They were wondrous in their words. What does that mean? Wondrous, Rabotai. We have to understand like this. What does it mean? Wondrous. You know, it comes from the word. If you look into the word pleti, it comes from the word pele, like wow. Like whenever did you ever see something, or did you ever hear something someone say, and you're like, wow, I would have never thought of that answer. Over here is the same concept. Pleti shemuflaim b'direhim. It comes from the word pele, like their words were so wondrous that when the Urim V'Tumim would give an answer, the people, they were at a state of astonishment. They were like, wow, and that's why it's called pleti. So the reason why it's called kreti, because they were precise. They didn't add more words. They didn't subtract more words. No, it was whatever they said, this was it. The reason why it says pleti, because even when they gave the answer, the words it would leave people in amazement. Okay. Rabotai, if you look into, over here there's an Od Aleph, you have to look into Haggadah Tzunim. He says, Sever Acheret, another way you could, another version they have is like this. V'lama nikra shemam urim v'tumim. Instead of saying, why were the names called kretu pleti, they say, why were the names called Urim v'tumim? So he says, Urim, what do you mean Urim? Comes from the word light. Shemi'irim et divrehem. They would light up their words, meaning from their words there would be light. It would be explained how the question, what they asked, should have been answered. Tumim, what does it mean tumim? Shemishlamim et divrehem. Tumim comes from the word tam. It would be complete. Their words were complete, that whatever they said was never nullified. There's no reason to think maybe it's like this, maybe like, no. It was 100% complete. Again, similar to what we had mentioned in Rashi regarding kreti. Okay. So that's what he's telling us over here. Velama nikra shemam kretu pleti. Why were the words called kretu pleti? Kreti shekortim divrehem, because they would cut their words. They were precise. Pleti shemuflim b'divrehem. The words were wondrous. It was like, wow. And another version we could say, Velama nikra shemam urim v'tumim. Why were their names called Urim v'Tumim? Urim shemerim et Devarim. Urim because they would light up. Their words would explain things. Tumim shemashlimim et Devarim. Tumim comes from the word tam, that they would complete their words, meaning whatever they said, that's the way it's going to be. Okay. Fine. Now, continues the Gemara. The Gemara says, "Ve'acher kach sar tzava lemelech Yoav." We saw in the previous class, said "V'sar tzava lemelech Yoav." After all this, after Achitophel, after Binyahu ben Yehoyada, after Eviatar, we see the verse says "V'sar tzava lemelech Yoav," and afterwards it's written "V'sar tzava lemelech Yoav," that Yoav was a commander to the army of King David. Comes Rashi. Rashi tells you, why do we need that pasuk over there? Leholich anshe milchama. Then he would go ahead and he would lead the men of war. He would go ahead and he would lead them to war. So Rabotai, I want to conclude right over here, because this whole thing is really answers the question. But I want to go back to where we had began, to put everything now into one context. Okay, we are beginning 6 lines from the bottom. Kevin sha'ala amud shachar, since dawn had come up, nichnesu chachmei Israel etzlo. The chachmei Israel, they entered to him, to David HaMelech. Amrulo, they said to him, to David HaMelech, Adoneinu HaMelech, our master the king, Amecha Israel tzrichim parnasa. The Jewish nation, your Jewish nation, needs parnasa. Amar lahem, he said to them, Lechu vitparnesu ze mizeh. Go and sustain one another. Amrulo, they said back to David HaMelech, Ena komis masbiya et ha'ari. That a handful of food is not going to satiate a lion. Ve'ena bor mitmalem michulyato. And a pit which is already dug, and now you're going to go ahead and you're going to dig out dirt from it, and try to refill that dirt that you just dug out to make it full, it's not going to become full. Amar lahem, then he said to them, fine. Lechu upishtu yedechem bagdud. Go and stretch out your hand, bagdud, at war, meaning go start a war with other people. Rabotai, over here, the army force, they want to learn that I believe that this was going on the Amalekim, because they were coming and they were disrupting the Jewish people. So because of them, they were robbing them. So they weren't able to have food. Forgot the name of the Mefarsh. So he said, go fight against them. Now you're going to go fight against them. Everyone's going to go back to normal. Someone will learn, no, you're going to go fight war with other countries and steal their spoils, whatever. That's how you do it. You know, you take over. And that's it, finished. Okay, whatever it is. But David HaMelech told them to go start war. And after the war, take whatever is left behind. Miyad, immediately, Yoatzim ba'Achitophel. Immediately, the Chachmei Israel, they went and they took advice from Achitophel. What the strategy should be, how they should ambush them, which way they should go. We saw this, Rabotai, in the previous class. V'nimlachim b'Sanhedrin. And then they went and they asked permission from the Sanhedrin, like Rashi brought down, because they wanted the Sanhedrin, that the highest Jewish court, that they should daven for them while they are at war. V'sholim b'Urim v'Tumim, and then they went and they would ask the Urim v'Tumim if they're going to be successful, Rashi says. Amar Rav Yosef said, Maikra, what is the verse that proves to us that this is the sequence of events that transpired? Advice, permission, and asking the Urim v'Tumim if they're going to be successful. Dichtiv, like it says in the pasuk, V'acharei Achitophel, after Achitophel, Binyahu ben Yehoyada, Binyahu the son of Yehoyada, Ve'eviatar, V'sar tzava lemelech Yoav, and Yoav, who was the commander of the king's army. Achitophel ze yoetz. Achitophel, we see in the verse, that's the yoetz. So that's the first thing the Chachamim did. They came and they took advice from Achitophel. V'chen hu omer, and so too the pasuk says, V'atzad Achitophel asher ya'atz be'emim haim ka'asher yish'al ish b'dvar ha'Elohim. And so too the advice of Achitophel, that he wished he gave advice in those days, like a man would ask the word of God. Binyahu ben Yehoiada, Binyahu the son of Yehoiada, says Sanhedrin. That was the Sanhedrin. So that corresponds to when the Chachamim went and they asked the Sanhedrin. Because Binyahu the son of Yehoiada, he was the Av Bedin of Sanhedrin. Ve'Evyatar elu Urim v'Tumim. And Evyatar, when we see the verse, Evyatar, that corresponds to Urim v'Tumim because they came to him to ask him if they're going to be successful. So we see over here, clearly the sequence of events is like this verse brings down. V'chen hu omer, and so to the pasuk says, U'Binyahu ben Yehoiada al hakreti v'al hapleti. And Binyahu the son of Yehoiada, he was in charge of the kreti v'pleti. And we understood this to mean that it's going under Urim v'Tumim. Why do we have to say that he was on the kreti v'pleti? Rashi explained that Binyahu ben Yehoiada was prior, he was first, before the Urim v'Tumim. Because they had to ask permission, and only then can they ask if they're going to be successful. Why were the words, why were the Urim v'Tumim called kreti upleti? Kreti shekurtim divrhem. Kreti because they would cut their words. Whatever they said was 100% precise and complete. Pleti shemuflaim b'divrhem. Their words were wondrous. They were wondrous in their words. We did see over here also in the Haggadah B'Tunim, V'lama nikra shemam Urim v'Tumim. Why were the names called Urim v'Tumim? Urim shemirim et divrehem. Urim comes from the word or. They would light, their words would light up, meaning they would explain the subject at hand. Tumim comes from the word tam. Shemeshlamim et divrehem. They would complete their words, that whatever they said would go down. And afterwards the pasuk says, Yoav, he was the commander of King David's army. So we see from over here, Rabotai, what did he do that? Why did we need that pasuk? Rashi said, Leholich anshe hamilchama, to lead the man of war. So, Rabotai, we do answer the question, where do we have a proof from the verses that what the Chachmei Yisrael did, that exactly was the sequence? Advice, permission, and then ask if you're going to be successful. We answered V'acharei Achitofel, which aligns with advice, Binyahu ben Yehoiada, which aligns with the Sanhedrin, Ve'Evyatar, which aligns with the Urim v'Tumim. Rabotai, have a great day. Baruch Adonai Olam. Amen ve'amen.